off the top of my head, general thoughts on being possessed or not. Um, I'm not sure where to start, uh, and all the same, the subject is huge, and I'm approaching it without any preparation. But I believe that if we are wondering whether we are possessed or not, the first question really is, what do I want? For instance, if I'm wondering whether there's some evil, satanistic slant in my personality, I can ask myself a question. Am I really impressed by evil? I mean, I can be impressed by power, especially if I live in a world where it matters, it actually matters. But then, is evil something that I consider worthwhile? That is that something that I would choose for my life? That would I like to devote myself to doing harm, to being evil all the time, to creating evil, to making it huge and embracing all the worlds, really? And I guess this is basically when you find your identity, if where you really are, you as a person, you as an individual, as someone who can live her or his life the way he wants to a certain degree, because obviously we cannot imagine that we are the only God there. Some of us believe that there is actually God above it all, however divine some may appear. So I think that this is where we should start if we are having worries, because all sorts of things are coming to our mind. Um, I have a pretty intimate relation with Rihanna. So this is really something. This is really something for a person who does not live in the celebrity. Live in the celebrity. I always make this mistake. Live in the celebrity world. A private person suddenly found herself in Rihanna's world. And it turned out that I had been in her video clips for quite a while, in quite a role. Which better have my money, probably it takes it to the higher, to, to the featherest end, so to say. But I think diamonds is good enough too. As we well know, Rihanna went for her journey, for her tour to France. This was the Diamonds tour, and all sorts of funny things started happening. It so happens that in 2001, when all the world went shocked at what happened in New York, I had this immediate response that I did not even put in words, but I was looking at this tower. And you cannot say, you cannot say, especially if you talk to a psychologist or psychiatrist, you can never ever say that someone talks to you from TV, because this is one of the symptoms of a psychiatric disorder. So remember it at all times. I didn't know that, but then I took the book, and this is the introduction to psychiatry, and there are cases. So such people who think that someone from TV talks to them are actually locked, and they need a leave from time to time if they behave. So back to the core of the problem. I got interested in this problem of terrorism, and I started looking for answers because I wanted to solve the problem of terrorism. And what I found out did not really find any clapping on any side. So I find myself in the middle of all the people hating me, and actually accused of being a terrorist myself. But that put me in a close relation with terrorists. So sometimes someone perhaps not really gets into your blood, but gets close and even in your body. And when you live with it, you experience certain things differently. Uh, and sometimes it can be happening without you actually knowing that it's happening. So I remember that I was very, very angry some time ago. It was years ago because before I had any idea what was happening at all. I just felt like, those people that I hate, that I would take their head and I would just, I miss the English word. But anyway, take the head and just hit the wall with it so that the brain would go out. And normally I'm quite, I'm a pacifist. I am fighting for the free Tibet, which for me is the traditional Tibet, with all the people living in peace, people meditating, silence, only birds singing, and all the animals, which are of course always kind. Even tigers are kind. Um, and the panther, the snow panther. I don't remember exactly. I think it's the snow panther. Everyone lives in total friendship, and it's normal. And you. This is a kind of the child of the jungle thinking, where all your animals, Black Panther is your friend. Everyone is your friend. So imagine this kind of thinking in a person totally peaceful. But then it so happened that I got interested in Boko Haram, and I drew a picture. I drew a woman, and I decided that it has to be tribal. So I activate. I made my imagination active because I wanted to imagine. I wanted to feel it. To really to feel it, to know it. So as I was drawing, I think that perhaps it's not perfect in terms of drawing because I don't have the skill. I don't practice it. So when I try to draw something, it doesn't really look the way I want it to look. I think the best example is the disgusting cartoon I drew, which was to symbolize Poland in the European Union. I drew it in 2012, and people have no idea, or perhaps you actually have any idea what came out of it. But to start with, nobody could read it really. So what they saw in the cartoon is a totally different story from the one I was telling. But one of the things about the cartoon is that I drew those people, and they were supposed to be disgusting. Because they were exposing my body, and I'm a very modest person, so this is why I exposed them. And I did not expose them in the real life, I exposed them in the cartoon. So, and the heartbeat is an orgasm. I had no better idea for expressing orgasm. Somehow it did not come to my mind that I can draw some waters or something remaining waters or whatever, some oceans flowing. Well, basically, I drew the people, and then I started learning that I was ridiculing the invalid people. So this is insanity. So basically, as I was drawing this cartoon, not the cartoon, as I was drawing this picture of the woman, of the black woman, the spirit, perhaps it's also not perfect, but I went into this thinking, I did it in my mind. I wanted to be tribal, because I wanted to reach the people from Boko Haram. And basically what I wanted to say is I wanted to ask them not to do harm to those girls. And I wanted also to ask them to let them learn. And I wanted to make the point that it's really good for the tribe. So this is not only about their aspirations, but it is good when at least let them. I mean, they can be medicine women. They can help a lot, and they can also do other things, help generally. Of course, I had no idea at the time what kind of world we are living in. So if I could turn back time and not comment on politics, I would have done that. I would be sitting at home silently, reading my books about Tibet and creating my beautiful, peaceful sphere of peace and beauty, and everything is calm, and everything is so optimistic, and people have only beautiful emotions, and love grows, and but then I was not aware of it. I had no idea what might happen to a person when the person says, well, basically what we are dealing with in Tibet is mass murder, and this is genocide. And I said all those things. So then I had the attack. Um, so these are basically three things. The first thing is the people who become get some connection to your body in some funny way. Then the things that you do with your imagination, and I mean, you don't think of the tribe because you want to murder people as they do, but you want to understand something. But if you want to understand something, you get the other part too, and then you have. So this is not really what you are having problems with. This is simply the world you have entered. And then the third thing is well, if you say something that people don't like, especially if it's political, and especially if you have an appeal, then you can expect that someone may attack you. And these people, they don't care about the elderly. They don't care about mothers. They don't care. Actually, the mother can be used as the what do you call it? Collateral. I think collateral is the word. Anyway, the person they can use for blackmail, and it's very emotional. Um, um, and they do all sorts of things and unthinkable things. And one of the things that they do is they are making you insane. So I believe that if we have any problems with something's getting quite weird and finding all sorts of tendencies in ourselves, and if we really want to get oriented, we must ask this first question. So do I want to create evil in the world? Is this what really gets me going? I mean, is it about the sense of power that I feel this moment? But perhaps I can have this sense of power and achieve it in other ways without doing harm. For I do believe that people get a sense of power from killing, murdering, and really making other people suffer, and it cannot be denied. So I believe we need to be truthful, but then where is you? What do you want? What do you really want? If you were to be a leader, what would be your perfect organization of life on the planet Earth? Which way would you go? So that's not much, but that can help. Agnieszka Bata Magdalena Lake from Poland. Actually, there's a bit more. Yesterday, I had something that I started working on in my mind, and that I arrived at another crazy idea of mine, and this concerns COVID and the injections. I mean, what do you call it? When you get the injection, so that it would prevent you from becoming ill. So There are all sorts of theories about it. One of them is that you actually get chips. And yesterday I got inspired to thinking. Scientologists have a funny theory about it, but I have better. I have a better one. My theory is that what they actually give you in the injection can change your genetic code. And I, I want to be a writer. I want to write novels. So perhaps I'm a bit, a bit crazy in that sense about all those science fiction things. But I do have this theory that another civilization has landed on the planet Earth, and they, I don't know, perhaps because the bad Americans, I am at war with the United States. Ask the NATO why. I don't think they will tell you, but there's a person from Ukraine. Ukraine, is it Ukraine? Called Savchenko. Savchenko, something like that. Nadia Savchenko. So ask them about Agnieszka Roig and Nadia Savchenko, and you will know. Anyway, yeah, I digress a lot. But there are so many things that come to my mind, and they are somehow connected together. So perhaps this bad CIA was doing experiments on aliens, and they didn't like it at all. And perhaps they even took some to Hollywood, to make better movies. And perhaps they just didn't imagine that the little tissue can become dominant. And perhaps this is one of the things that we are dealing with these days. So I believe we might be having a problem of another civilization taking over the planet Earth as the answer to bad treatment or whatever. I have no idea about their psychology. Certainly there have been many ideas about psychology, even the human psychology through ages changing. So there was a time when they would cut some connections in your brain as a perfect treatment of aggression. And then they decided that it was not good. So they had new ideas. So we must know about it too, that something that is, the current psychology does not necessarily need to be the real psychology. And then think of the aliens, a totally different planet, so they might have a totally different way of thinking, a totally different world. On a different planet, even the water that we have here does not to be the water. It can be something totally different with a totally different chemical formula. Everything different. Everything. It's just water in some way. So perhaps this is something necessary for life, but it's not. It has nothing to do with our water at all. So it can also be true about the psychology. But I do have a sense, and I believe that it's easily perceivable that something really bad is happening to humankind. So we are certainly being destroyed, and perhaps some of us are, and perhaps some of us not. Perhaps some of us are not. I certainly feel to be among the ones that are being destroyed, which is pretty bad and pretty depressing. However, I think that they might have taken over the minds of those who rule the world, and it might be that they are getting their genetic code, into our bodies. So this is my latest theory. It can be totally unreal. It is crazy, but just to say that there are so many things that we might not be taking into account. So we shouldn't sign for, oh my god, I am being possessed, or oh my god, I have gone insane too fast. Oh yeah, about how insane I am myself. Well, actually, I am totally sane. I just have a very strong sense of truth and justice. And from what has been done to me, I really believe that the humankind deserves annihilation. but I cannot imagine myself doing that. Although I'm imagining better and better myself doing some harm to particular people who have been working on destroying me in a way that, and especially the people working on destroying my mother. So this is when it's happening to you, it's bad enough, and sometimes you just cannot take your mind off. So you um, I mean, you just, whatever is happening around you does not really matter. What matters is here and now, what's happening to you, and you are trying to fight with that with all the power you have, doing what you can. And then you obviously have the picture of humankind, of the people, because these are people doing it to you. Unless it is a machine pre-programmed, but if it's a machine pre-programmed, then there was someone who pre-programmed it. So there's a human being, there's always some person behind it. The first person who decided that you will be given the harm, or the people will be given the harm. And it's totally inhuman. So this is why I don't think about them in human terms. But then when I see people giving their consent to it, I think that all the people should, because I have always had it, if you don't agree to something, you must say that you don't agree to it. Otherwise, you are an accessory to the crime. But then I also know what it means, so I'm not sure if I would be so willing to speak nowadays if I could turn back time. So one needs to remember that too, but it's in my nature. So I lived my life. I have lived I have lived my life that way. Um, so judging by what people have been doing, and I have been in the center of it, and I have seen things that go beyond. I mean, I could describe them, but overall, when you are in the middle of it, it's not possible to describe it in words. And it really kills whatsoever respect for people, whatsoever respect for life. Because you see the life that is destroyed, and this is, when you think of those crimes we learn about, like cutting in Russia, when they killed. This is very strong in Poland, where they killed the Polish elite, and the mass graves, which is pretty terrible and depressing and inhuman, and how can you do something like that to people? And this was a horror. We learned about it at school, and we were being made sensitive to such horrors. I mean, we did not learn about cutting when I was in the primary school, because it was still communism, but we learned about the German invasion of Poland, and the victims of war, and about Auschwitz, of course. So then you still have the image that, okay, so the person dies. I mean, the individual, the human life ends, because it starts with the birth and it ends with the death. And I always had this idea of, okay, so then the spirit is free, and you can believe in God, and you can believe that you go to heaven, and you can believe in, as Scientologists do, in reincarnation, and it's so simple. So of course you lose life, and of course there's pain in being shot at the back of your head, for instance. And generally this is destruction, because it's obvious that they wanted to destroy more than the very people. They wanted to destroy Poland, which is a historical life. So this is also a kind of spirit that lives, a kind of life, organic life that develops from the soul. But what I have seen is really trying to kill the spirit. So this is beyond imagination. and making the spirit find himself or herself in such a condition that it simply mm, it breaks your head, so to say, because it's no longer about your heart being broken. It's simply beyond all you can think of. So I do not think I am insane. I think it is quite the reverse. But I suffer a lot, and some of the fury is huge, the anger, the wrath. This is a holy wrath. I really think that God should somehow step down and treat the people guilty of it with the holy wrath. So that's how I think of it. But I live it every minute, so um, sometimes, I don't know if you have seen Kill Bill, but there are some people who really deserve my round one day, and I'm certainly not able to do anything like that now, but in future I just I mean what I want to do to their bodies and how I want to make them suffer is really beyond beyond a point of sanity, unless you think of it in terms of justice, what they have done to me, my family, my life, and I believe to other people too, because it's quite obvious that it's not something new. So this is what they have been doing. Perhaps not with the intensity and not with the cruelty, but this is not, One day I decided I will be evil, and Agnieszka Rojek is my choice. And this is a routine.